Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Samurai Brothers Wrestling. And this is your host, John and Matthew. And kind of getting into it on a late night. We've had quite a busy week. And so we just want to see how things are going. We're going to talk about, for tonight, we're going to talk about the recently completed D2 and D3 championships.
Also of note, in honor of St. Patrick's Day this week.
Yes. In honor of St. Patty's Week. Kind of going for green, I guess you can say. Anyway, so D2 and D3 championships, Matthew, have concluded. And I think we're going to try and we're also going to look at, there was quite some surprises for the D1 conference tournaments, and
yes,
we're going to see
quite some surprises.
Yes, and we're going to see how things are going with the D1 brackets. So let's get right into it then. Matthew, if you could just make sure that I'm able to screen share. And we're going to take a look at first how things went on the D3 side. Now, Matthew, if you remember, for the D3 championships have been dominated by two schools since 1995. So, and we were looking at the fact that Wartburg, which is one of the two schools that has dominated D3 for the past 20 some odd years. They were in the lead after day one. So let me get into the page to show that. Where is it? Go. So what happened, as you know, after day one, Wartburg had all 7 of their wrestlers still alive, and so all 7 of the rest, 7 of 7 placed. They had 6 in the semis, so they were ahead comfortably by double-digit points. But as I'm reading into the article, what ended up happening was Wartburg had a disastrous semifinals round. 5 of 6 of their wrestlers ended up losing their semifinals matches. And in the end, as Flo's article points out, they needed a lot of help from other schools. They did what was necessary in order to place, but in the end, and it was Wabash who was looking to try and break this streak of more than 20 years, 25 years actually, to be exact. And so they were looking to break that streak, but in the end, they just could not pull it up. Even with Wartburg losing their lone finals match, they ended up winning by 1 point. So 79 team points for Wartburg over Wabash, who had 78 team points. And the other thing I saw here in Flo's article is that Wartburg became the first team. Actually, I don't know if that's the first team, but this was Wartburg's first championship without any individual champions. So, Matthew, what do you think of the? It must have been pretty suspenseful for them to have to kind of wait to see what was going to happen in the finals with everyone else, don't you think?
Yeah, the fact of the matter is they got extremely lucky in that final because Wabash had 3 finalists, and if either one of them had won, it would have been over. So the fact of the matter is Wartburg got extremely lucky. So this is one of those times when they're probably just like, "Ooh, we barely won that one." It could have easily tipped the other way. Let's face it.
Things, yes. Either or, things could have gone another way. But so Anyway, and again, that's just how things are. Things, you never know how things are going to go. That's what makes wrestling so great, is the fact that it's each match is going to contribute towards whether or not you're going to win that title or not. So in Wartburg's case, yes, it even, and that's another thing, is even matches that don't involve your team can end up affecting how you perform in the tournament. So with that being said, they did have 7 of 7 All-Americans, but no winners. They had 1 finalist, no winners. But so that's D3 in the bag there. Wartburg, their 15th national title, and this was the closest national title race for the D3 level in 29 years, according to Flo's website. So anyway, yep. Well, maybe this might be something to maybe pay attention to, see who can can Wabash do something next year. But I don't know. It might just come down to Augsburg and Wartburg again. Who knows when this streak will be broken, don't you think?
It is definitely a unique streak that they could maintain that streak for as long as they have. It would be interesting to see if it's been the same coaches, because that could play a factor. But if it hasn't been, then that would be rather interesting, because we've seen what happens when coaches go in flux.
Mm-hmm. Right. And
at higher levels.
Probably I could try to look to see. I don't have it up here, but that is something I know that the current Wartburg coach is the one who, because I think what happened was they had the coach who helped start the streak. He's no longer there, but there was actually a time where, kind of in the middle of this streak that's been going on, the former Wartburg coach actually shared head coach duties with the current Wartburg coach. So the NCAA website actually lists both of them for 3 of the years that they won titles, which is kind of a unique thing, I think, to see also.
Yeah, you don't often see co-head coaching positions in
and maybe that was the transitionary period for Wartburg in that sense.
Well, and if it's been consistent in that way, then maybe that's the reason why they've been able to maintain that dominance, is because they have essentially a consistent coaching lineage.
Right. Well, anyway, so congrats to Wartburg, 15 titles. That's still, very respectable in that sense. I mean, a title is a title, and, it's not how you win it. It's the fact that you did win it, I think. So anyway, so now we're going to move on to actually a streak that actually was broken, and that is actually at the D2 level. And so as you can see here, Nebraska Kearney is back on top of the Division II level after quite some time. I know that there was a streak going where it was Notre Dame, Ohio, and St. Cloud State, who was actually on a 3-year winning streak. Those two schools duking it out. But now it's Nebraska Kearney back on top. And Matthew, they actually won this pretty easily. They were ahead after day 1 of this tournament, and they really did not look back. In fact, so what you can see here, and this kind of goes back to the fact that they had lost on the last match of the tournament last season. So they had almost gotten there, but the fact that the last match of the tournament decided whether or not they would win, that must have been pretty heartbreaking for them. And I'm sure that was very motivating for them to come back to try and win the tournament. Don't you think?
Well, yeah, and especially if you're that close and you're able to build back a team, and if you're have the ability to, then it's like they're not. Obviously, it was too late for the seniors, but the other classmen are just like, we don't want to be in that situation again. We don't want to lose again. So obviously, one of the reasons why they dominated is because those guys went back and they worked hard, and they were just like, we're not going to leave this to any chance whatsoever. We're going to make this decisive.
In
And
fact,
they did.
right. When you're looking at, and again, we're on Flo's website here, looking at the article that they wrote, and it turns out eight Kearney wrestlers placed top five. So they were really blowing through the competition there, and they had they had three wrestlers in the finals, and two also placed third, and so they were really on a mission to regain that title status.
Yeah, like it's none of these wrestlers this year have ever had that, because it's been about a decade. It's been the last time was about the time I was wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a while. These guys have not had the opportunity. So, and they got really close and they lost it. So they were just like, yeah, we're going to go in there and we're going to actually take it. And obviously they were able to go in there, work hard, and they left nothing to chance if those statistics are all true, because they were just going in there and they were just like, we're going to make sure we win this one. And clearly they went in there and they won it.
So other teams that were competitive, although, as it says, basically Kearney had this thing wrapped up before the finals, because of just how well that their wrestlers placed. But the other teams that had champions were runner-up Central Oklahoma. I think we had discussed last week that, it was Central Oklahoma that I believe was ranked first going into this tournament, and they were one of the teams that qualified the most wrestlers going into it. So, it was looking like that there was probably going to be a team that was going to unseat St. Cloud State, but, I don't think we would have seen just on paper that it was going to be Nebraska Kearney that was going to do it. But anyway, so they ended up having two national champions on their way to runner-up with 86 team points. And we also had West Liberty finished third with 75.5 points. They had a champion at 125 pounds. St. Cloud State, who was the defending champion, took a little bit of a dive. While not having an abysmal tournament, it was not enough to put them in the top three. So they ended up in fourth place after having their 3-year winning streak broken. So in the end, though, as it seems, Kearney, they're back on top. But Matthew, what do you think? Hopefully we'll be able to, after the conclusion of the season, we'll probably have to go back and look and see, what teams are going to have, returners, once they have their seniors going out. But do you think that maybe it might be Kearney's back in action? Do you think that they're here to stay, or do you think maybe Central Oklahoma could try to mount something for the first time in a while that they've won a national championship?
Well, Kearney was number 2, so even though Central Oklahoma was number 2, and even though they just got destroyed, again, it would just depend on some of those seniors, which one of the Nebraska Kearney guys were seniors, and then it would also depend on which one of the returners from Central Oklahoma are going to be in there. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that Central Oklahoma could possibly mount a comeback, but it would certainly be an effort. And again, that would be one of those things to maybe go and look back on for future episodes when we don't have as much going on. I'd imagine that we'd be covering some of the more international stages. But
Right.
for right now, that's something we could definitely look at.
Right. And I think it'll be interesting, because, there are websites out there I've been seeing that, they are putting out who's committing to which universities, by level, which state, and all that. So, depending, it will definitely look for to be an interesting episode to see who's going to be going where, and will this really stack up the team going forward.
Well, the thing is with recruitment, if there's anything I've learned, it's that recruitment doesn't always determine things. I mean, you get a good wrestler going into a good program and everything matches up, then it works out. But if there's anything that I learned when it comes to both wrestling into high school, where we had a past of pretty good performances, and wrestling at a college where I'd see guys come and go, recruitment doesn't always mean something. You could have a state champion recruited to a school and they wash out after a year. So that I'd be more interested in seeing the returners rather than the recruits. I mean, that's something again that we could go over in a coming episode, but I'm more interested in the returners than anything.
How consistent your team is.
Yeah, that's the consistent guys. Yeah, I'd be more interested in that than looking at the recruits. The recruits are something again that can be done, but I'd be more interested in the returning wrestlers.
All right. Well, Kearney back on top of the scene. This is their fourth title as a D2 school. And I think at one point, were they not NAIA?
That's a good question. One thing to remember about Nebraska Kearney, it's the University of Nebraska Kearney. It's a public school. There aren't very many public schools in the NAIA. They're usually in the NCAA. So,
all right.
I mean, it's something to look at, but I don't know if they were ever NAIA. They might have been, because there might have been a time when more public schools were in the NAIA, but I'm willing to say that they probably were never NAIA.
All right. Well, that concludes the talks about the D2 championships. We're kind of going through pretty quick, folks. We're just trying to get this thing wrapped up. But now comes the creme de la creme, Matthew, to talk about. First off, we're going to talk about the D1 conference results. So I think we'll kind of go in order of, what the probably not to say that the level, but more of just, I think we'll go from smallest to biggest in terms of who was going to get the most qualifiers, automatic qualifiers. So I think we'll first start off as the Southern Conference, which had the lowest number of automatic spots going into the NCAA tournament. So I believe that one is, oops, I clicked off on my screen. Let me go back on here. And so let me see here. Oh, this is not the right one.
That's the MAC.
That is the MAC. Here we go. Okay. So the Southern Conference, which according to the last time we talked, only has 15 qualifying automatic qualifying spots, and so this was won by
15 is like enough for the champions and like 5 finalists depending on the
5 finalists depending on the weight class. And so this was Campbell. Campbell ended up according to the SoCon's website, Campbell wins their 4th Southern Conference title. And so in that, they had 3 individual champions. And from there, one of the things that they also seem to do, in the end, they had actually a closer championship run than one might think. But in the Southern Conference, I guess anyone could win. But it appears that Campbell is maintaining dominance of the conference, at least for the time being, even though this championship was only won by 5.5 points. Matthew, what do you think? What can we have for expectations for the Southern Conference? Do you think that they might be able to at least get some All-Americans at the NCAA tournament?
I would say it depends on the wrestlers, because we weren't really paying attention. It would depend on the wrestlers who are ranked. I mean, if you have a high enough ranking wrestler, then it's definitely possible to have a All-American. I know that I believe that Appalachian State has had All-Americans before, so it's not outside the realm of possibility. But so here's something I'm trying to remember if Campbell is another one of those NAIA to NCAA transplants, but I might be getting Campbellsville and Cumberland's.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say it is. I'd really do, but I'd have to go back and double check that. I might be wrong, but I don't recall Campbell really being on the map. So the fact that I don't recall them being in D1 that long, regardless of whether they're an NAI transplant or not. They haven't been in that long. So the fact that they've made this transition to the point where they're actually winning a conference, even though it's the weakest of the D1 conferences, is impressive. And again, looking at all those, I do believe that there's a possibility that we could at least have an All-American. Of note, Virginia Military Institute, I believe that's one of those, even though it's because it's clearly a 4-year school, I believe sometimes that does provide as a feeder to some, I'd like to say West Point.
Mm-hmm.
I think it clearly, because it's in here, it's a 4-year school, but I think I'd like to see VMI as Virginia Military Institute, and that's where the guys would want to go in there in order to get a few years to go into West Point.
So looking at the standings, the results, because they're listing obviously who won, but then they are also listing who ended up getting into those allocated spots. So the weight classes where if you made it to the finals, you were automatically in were 125, 133, 149, 65s, and heavyweights. And from looking at the listing, it looks like the top 5 schools were the ones who ended up qualifying wrestlers to the NCAA tournament.
You skipped over some weight classes, but
I skipped over where?
You skipped over some weight classes.
Right, because these weight classes had automatic qualifiers.
Those are the additional allocations.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that I was saying that these weight classes were the ones that I named were the ones that got automatic additional qualifiers if you made the finals.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. So we'll probably be revisiting who got in from the Southern Conference when we get into the at-larges. But let's look at another conference as we're building up to, obviously, the Big 12 and the Big 10s. But let's look here at the MAC. So the MAC had an interesting one, which is, a first, Lock Haven University winning their first MAC title. And so this is interesting because I was looking though. Lock Haven wasn't really tapped to be a big competitor, I guess, in the conference. They were, according to the article on the MAC, they were ranked 11 of 13th, of the teams in the preseason. So, to come this way and, finish 15 and a half points ahead of the competition. And not only that, they actually were looking pretty strong going into this tournament. They ended up having 6 finalists and won 3 of the weight classes, I believe. Am I right? 1, 2, I'm sorry. 2 weight classes, but still they had 4 finalists and 2 winners. And when you look at they had a number 1 seed at 125 pounds. They also had a 3 seed, their other winner, at 157. Their 65 was a 2 seed, and then their heavyweight was also a 2 seed. So, Matthew, do you think that they really seem to turn things around, being ranked, in literally the bottom half, or the more like the bottom 75, bottom 25%, I think. The bottom 25% of the conference to come back and finish first. What do you think that really got them motivated to come and win this tournament by 15 and a half points?
That's a very good question. I really don't know how to answer that. You have a team who was ranked, if they're ranked 13, they were ranked literally the last
11 of 13. Yes.
It's hard to tell, really. I mean, especially when you have more established colleges out there. It's like I've heard of Central Michigan, I've heard of Northern Illinois, Buffalo, Cleveland State, Kent State, Ohio, SIU Edwardsville. I wrestle SIU Edwardsville guys.
Right.
So,
I mean, there's George Mason, Edinboro.
Yeah, they haven't been like strong wrestling schools, but like I know that Edinboro, it's like a bunch of these have gotten All-Americans before. So the fact that Lock Haven, it's like I genuinely have not really I don't even know if I've heard the name Lock Haven before, to be perfectly honest. And here they are winning the MAC.
Mm-hmm.
They were not highly ranked, and all of a sudden they had these guys perform extremely well. So
this will be interesting. They've ended up qualifying. It looks like they've qualified 5. So I don't think we'll see that much from the MAC, but there's always a possibility that maybe they can make some noise coming in this tournament. Probably, Lock Haven or the MAC in general going in, probably getting some All-Americans. I have no doubt that, the
MAC has gotten All-Americans before.
Right.
So yeah, they've got a good chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But to me, that's just crazy. Lock Haven. I wonder if they've even won any conference championships before. This might be I don't know much about that school, but this might be their first ever conference championship in anything.
Right. Well, we'll have to look that up. I mean, because, that
would be the equivalent of like if Portland State, back when it still existed, won the Pac-12.
Right. Or a great one, because we all know that, Arkansas Little Rock is an affiliate member of the Pac-12.
Yeah, if Arkansas Little Rock won it,
that would be like, yes, Little Rock coming in to win the Pac-12. So we'll have to, follow this going forward, because obviously this is why we're doing this. We're trying to familiarize ourselves, with these teams, because we've been kind of casual guys. We've obviously wrestled and stuff, and we've been kind of on and off. But, I think it's always interesting to see just where everything is going, with these teams and such. So,
I bet that we could take, like, individual episodes and just analyze these individual conferences. If we wanted to devote entire episodes, we could probably do that.
So
we could do that. We could do that in off weeks.
I'm sure. So let's go to the ACC really quick. ACC athletic.
Wait, who gets more, the ACC or the Pac-12?
I'd say let's go to the ACC first because Pac-12 is our home territory. But I think going into this, NC State, which is the more dominant, school in the ACC, and as you can see from the headline, they've been the dominant team for the past 4 years now running. They're winning their 4th consecutive ACC title. And I was looking at the qualifiers, and NC State ended up qualifying all 10 of their wrestlers to the tournament. Now, is that going to necessarily translate into, making a run for the championship? Before we get into the actual championship conversation, I'd probably say, you'd have to really pull out some upsets. But just kind of looking at this, this is it actually is the second time that they won 4 titles in a row. So I think that goes without a doubt. NC State is the powerhouse school in the ACC when it comes to wrestling. They, for this time around, they finished with 98.5 points. Second place, Virginia Tech had 76, while Pitt had 51 points. The other thing, I think, if I'm looking at this, it looks like, can I see where? Yes. So anyway, NC State, from what it looks like, they had 3, 4, 6 finalists and 4 winners. Do you think that there's really anyone that's going to unseat NC State right now in the ACC?
In the ACC, not in the near future. There was a time. Tom Brands was at one point the coach of Virginia Tech, and Tom Brands is now the coach of Iowa. But that was a while ago. And if you just look at that score, NC State defeated Virginia Tech by over 20 points. The fact of the matter is, NC State has always, as long as I can remember, they've always had pretty good wrestling, especially when it comes to the ACC. So they're not weak in that regard. And with their coach going the way they are, I seriously doubt that the other teams would have to do really well. And here's the thing. I've seen Virginia Tech guys become All-Americans. I've seen Pittsburgh guys. I think I may even remember a Pittsburgh guy winning a championship. But I've seen All-Americans in this area before from the ACC. So it's not a weak conference in terms of quality of wrestling, but they've never won a wrestling championship. That's just like we've said, the Big Ten is the dominant championship. So it would, even though here's NC State winning, they'd really have to be able to pull something off in order to win the championship. So,
well, yeah, in order to really win the championship, especially if you're the underdog, you got to pull a lot of upsets. In that case.
Yeah, and the thing is, in a tournament as large as, we'll discuss this later, but it's a little bit easier to win in a conference, especially if it's only 6 teams like the ACC versus a
national tournament where you've got 33 wrestlers in a bracket.
Yeah, it's a completely different ballpark. So, and these guys are, and it's the best of the best in terms of the wrestlers. It's like all the smaller fish have been
taken out of the pond.
Taken out of the pond. So
All right. Well, let's go to.
I would definitely expect some NC State All-Americans. That's pretty much a given. But
So
yeah,
now
I don't think they're.
How many can make the finals, right? Can any of them make the finals? That's the thing.
It depends on the ranking, depends on how they do, because we've seen guys who were ranked number 1 who went 2-0 in the tournament.
Yep. Happens all the time.
Who's Askren's brother? Who's Ben Askren's brother? The younger Askren? He went 2-0. He was ranked number 1.
Yeah.
So we'll just see.
All right. So Pac-12, kind of our home turf. This is no surprise at ASU, that they would this is their third championship in a row, and as their website shows, 23rd overall conference title. And I think but actually it's not surprising that they won, but the fact of the matter is, when you look at the score, the fact that it was only half a point, means that the race was kind of closer than we thought. But it looks like, though, what that meant was that there was probably a lot of head-to-heads, between ASU and Oregon State, because, as you can see here, ASU also, they won 6 weight classes. They won 6 weight classes, and they also had one person take third. So the fact that if they had lost one of those, finals, then it probably would have been Oregon State winning the title. So it had to have been very, very competitive, don't you think?
Yeah, I'm surprised that you've got 6 champions and it was that close,
and only winning by half a point.
Yeah, that's extremely close. But ASU and Oregon State, those are the 2 dominant Pac-12.
And then Stanford. Teams. So let's take a look at this really quick, because sure enough, 125, it was an ASU Oregon State match. It was a head-to-head, and it was only a 5-3 decision by Courtney over Kaler. So that's one that really. And then when you look here, so then you had McGee from ASU. He was actually against Rich from Bakersfield, who had actually upset Turner from Oregon State. So, we missed out on another
head-to-head
matchup. And this might have been one of the things that actually did Oregon State in, by the fact of losing that semifinal match and not making it to the final. I mean, based on how the points went, because now we're 2 for 2 in placing, obviously. Although it looks like this time around, you had Ramos for ASU, 141 taking third, but you had Willits from Oregon State in the finals, although he lost to Woods from Stanford. So here's another opportunity that I'm sure you're going to point out that they probably blew in terms of trying to win that championship.
Well, what I'm going to point out is, to me, it's just crazy how, like I said, they had 6, and Oregon didn't even have the other 4 titles. Stanford had 1, and it was still that close.
Right.
That's what's so crazy about how close this tournament was.
Right, because you got Stanford and Oregon State didn't make the championship here yet. Parco from ASU versus Lamer from Cal Poly. So you've got that there, but Crooks from Oregon State did make third. So a lot of if Oregon State had won a couple of more matches, then they would have gotten there. But I'm almost curious as to whether or not bonus points also played a factor. Now, here's where we have our second head-to-head at 157, for Oregon State versus ASU. And again, as shown in the article, ASU won this one. So they're 2 for 2 in the head-to-head matches. But now here's an interesting one. 165. You got Wick from Cal, and here's something that's going to be, there's going to be an interesting topic that's going to come up when we talk about the actual tournament itself. Wick from Cal Poly, he's seeded number 1 in the 165 bracket. And so, I guess, but, you got Griffith from Stanford actually looks like gave Wick a run for his money because you have an 8-7 decision there. And, normally I don't recall that you would have, really high scoring matches, unless it's like a one-sided. You don't really see a lot of close matches with a lot of points, especially at that level, don't you think, when it comes to D1?
Yeah, because normally the D1 matches are very close. They're just going in there. And the thing is, a lot of high schoolers are like mesmerized by this idea of like a magic move, like a Granby or something like that. When in reality, if you watch the NCAA championships, they're won on the most basic of moves: double leg takedowns, single leg takedowns. And the setups aren't that crazy either. It's like you bop the head. They're not these like they aren't done by these magic moves. These are the best of the best, defeating guys with the most basic of moves. And it's the same thing if we for the international level when we talk about that when that comes up during the summer. So
also here's something that's a little. So you got Anthony Valencia of the famed Valencia brothers from St. John Bosco, looking like a little bit, I guess not as dominant as Zahid was, because as you remember, Zahid he did win a national title, and I think he was a two-time All-American, if I remember correctly.
Just to recall, Anthony is the youngest of the
yes,
three,
Anthony
right?
is the younger brother. Yes.
Yeah. So, well, the other brother would have been good too if he hadn't. What did he get busted for? Was it weed?
No. Peds. So anyway, but yeah, it looks like he ended up facing Olguin from Oregon State, and he ended up losing the match. Although this, sudden victory, so obviously that could have gone either way. But a worse result could have ended up either tying the teams for the title, or it could have ended up with obviously Oregon State winning.
But let me go back to the fact that we're at 165. We're 6 weight classes in. OSU has at this point OSU has no champions, right?
No champions, yes.
No champions. They put finals, but they have no champions.
But I think they did have one in the finals, but that person lost.
Yeah. So again, it's crazy how things still got 174.
174.
Well, we're 7 weight classes in.
Actually,
no champions.
This is right here. Almost, who was the 2 seed, he was defeated by the 3 seed Eschens, who made the finals, and Eschens actually ended up winning the Pac-12 title, and he actually defeated the number 1 seed Kemp from Cal Poly. But then so I guess Rockford was the 6th seed, and he ended up not winning. But then so the head-to-head for OSU ASU ended up being in the 5th place match.
Well, to me, it's funny. He was beat by the Little Rock in the consolation semis.
So
it's one of those things where we kind of hate to beat on Little Rock because we consider them the joke of the Pac-12, but that's essentially what they are. not necessarily a joke, but they're just the weakest of the Pac-12.
So here we go. You got Trey Munoz, who
Finally a champion.
right, and
Finally.
actually he did it in dominating fashion too. 2 falls on his
Well,
way,
that probably helped. That's probably one of the reasons why.
right? I mean, falls right there, that earns you I think it's 2 points. 2 points in a championship match. It's either 2 points or 1.5 points. I forget which one, but it gets you those points right then and there. So I mean, and Trey Munoz, as you may recall, Matthew, he's the son of Mark Munoz. So he's got a good pedigree.
I forgot, who did Mark Munoz wrestle for?
I don't remember. All I know is you've told me about Mark Munoz because of his time in MMA.
The
But
UFC specifically.
Yeah, but I can go.
And let's not forget the fact that he at one point was the president of what's now the Orange County Wrestling Association, formerly the Southern California Wrestling Association.
That's very true. So anyway,
And another Bond. He was born in Yokosuka.
Oh, that's interesting.
On the base. So the same place we were at.
So here we go, 197. Here is our, I think it's the 5th match. It might be the 4th. I forget. But ASU again, winning where it counts is.
So here we are, 9 weight classes in. OSU has had 1 champion, and they still lost by half a point.
And then heavyweight right here.
1 champion of the 9.
Here's another. So it looks like ASU went 7 for 7 in the finals. If they made the finals, they did not lose. But here we go. You got OSU 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, not that's Munoz won his. So they're 1 of 3 right there. Then if you go down, 1 of 4, 1 of 5, 1 of 6. So they had 6 in the finals, and they only won 1 match. And I think three of those ended up being head-to-head.
And they still lost by half a point.
Yeah. So, not sure how the score went, but if ASU had won, if one of those guys had lost their final match, they would not have won the tournament. That.
If you look closely, they list the number of points that someone wins. I think that's those are the points.
I
know. Wait a minute. No, those are probably the match numbers.
It's probably on track. So.
No, those are the match numbers. Don't just
anyway.
What I said.
So I don't know, Matthew. What do you think? I mean, does this necessarily mean that ASU is going to make a run for it? I don't think so, but I think it'll be interesting.
ASU made 1 run, and that was under Bobby Douglas when they won the NCAA championship.
I mean, I think without a doubt, usually, Pac-12 always they always make a statement, not a big statement though, at the NCAA. So
they always get at least a few All-Americans, like
right.
1 or 2.
So I think it's just a matter of out of these who qualify, who's going to end up.
On a good year, they'll get a champion, but.
So that leads us now into the EIWA, and this apparently was a close one. Cornell ended up winning the tournament. They are a perennial contender for the EIWA championship, but apparently they only won it by 2 points. Was the final score. Let me see if they have. So, it looks like there was a lot that went on in the finals.
Well, as I recall, of note is that it wasn't just Cornell, but the top 3 spots of the EIW, the top 3 teams of the EIWA were, what's it called? They were all Ivy League schools.
Yes, you were mentioning that a lot of the contenders were Ivy League, which is something.
Well, the 8 was it the 6 schools? I forget how many schools are in the Ivy League. All but 2 of the schools in the Ivy League have wrestling, so they just do all their they just do all their stuff. Their postseason is the IEWA championship for the most part, and they do have the Ivy League does have a dual meet championship.
Right.
They just go in there, they duel each other. They might duel a few other EIWA schools. I have no idea if the EIWA has ever had a dual meet championship. The dual meet championship varies from conference to conference. Some of them do it, some of them don't.
Mm-hmm.
And it partially depends on size, but I know that the Ivy League itself does dueling, and they have a dual championship, but they don't. That's as far as they go. They don't sponsor.
So it looks like they don't have the brackets yet, so I can't pull up everything. So we're gonna have to skip the EIWA. So apologies to our viewers. Didn't really have enough time to prepare for this, but you know,
we'll talk about it in like a down.
So let me go in now. Now we're going to go into.
But what I can say is that Cornell winning is not surprising because I think they still have the same coach. One has to remember Cornell actually placed second.
Yes,
in the NCAA championships not too long ago. It was during Cale's reign. The beginning of Cale, not the beginning. It was during Cale's reign. It was when Kyle Dake was wrestling there. The only 4-time NCAA champion to win them in 4 different weight classes. So they're definitely.
Yeah, they're not.
They're a program to be reckoned with.
Besides Dake, they've had individual champions and such too. So they're not a pushover. Be interesting to see what they do. They will probably get into the top 10. You know.
Now this was interesting.
Yes, this was interesting. Cornell again. You know, they do what they do at the EIWAs, and they'll probably get a top 10. Finish. But now let's go into the Big 12. Hey, well, it's talk about a homecoming, right, Matthew?
Yeah, because Mizzou hasn't been in the Big 12 for all that long. At least not since they haven't returned to the Big 12.
The Missouri Tigers, they were in the Big 12 as a school. The school then left the Big 12. I believe
for the SEC.
Yes, they went to the SEC. Wrestling ended up as an affiliate in the MAC, where they were for a while. But the Missouri decided to come back home to the Big 12. And, of all things, they win the conference championship in their first year back.
I don't remember them winning the Big 12 or even the MAC. Did they win the MAC?
I would have to go back and look at it.
That's another interesting thing to look up during the off season.
Now, so for them to be able to do that, there was quite a few other things that happened. It was Oklahoma, though, that ended up taking third place.
Well, I don't know if I mentioned this for the conference previews, but Oklahoma was having towards the end they weren't really having the best of seasons. A lot of their guys were getting injured.
So yeah, Missouri takes the championship. It's Oklahoma, not OSU, but Oklahoma that ends up winning, second place. And then it's Iowa State, taking third. And it looks like, though, Missouri, I don't know how much that they had it wrapped up, going into the finals, but it's a pretty commanding lead when when you finish, 18 and a half points ahead. And then you had Oklahoma and Iowa State actually in close contention for second place, with Oklahoma having the edge by 3 points. And we also looked at the fact that, Oklahoma State, we were talking about that, they've had a lot of injuries, but it looks like they were able to somewhat overcome that, because I think being off by 2.5 points out of third place, while that's obviously not something that, you would, that John Smith would want to hear. It's like, oh, we only lost by 2.5 points. I'd have to say that coming from that, isn't as bad, but obviously he would have wanted his team to do better. But I think being able to finish in fourth place, within a range, when you only have a 5.5 point range from second, third, and fourth, I think that's it's a lot better than it seems, don't you think?
Yeah. That's just
I mean, it's not as bad as it seems to be. Obviously, taking fourth is not something you want, and so this is what happened here.
I was just reading I was just reading further down that Air Force Academy has their first Big 12 champion.
Yes. So,
but they also haven't been in the conference that long either. They were absorbed from the Western Wrestling.
Yeah, the Western Regional, which was the Western Regional was not something that was recognized by the NCAA. So it was that was a tournament to kind of be an at-large pick, so to speak.
As I recall, there was an actual conference that the Western Wrestling, whatever it was, but the NCAA didn't recognize the conference, so there was a regional conference that just stuck the guys in there anyways.
Right. So, but then they merged with the Big 12 to give the Big 12 back their,
which did formerly include the recently resurrected and once again dead Fresno State. Rest in peace.
So anyway, yeah, Air Force Academy ended up getting their first Big 12 individual champion. Although another first that happened was Northern, I believe was it Northern Colorado, also got their first Big 12 individual champion as well. So that being said, though, I mean, it's kind of interesting that, you would have.
It proved to be an interesting season just overall in NCAA wrestling.
Right.
All things considered.
So I think overall, though, I mean, you're looking, you've got, it looks like, Air Force winning at heavyweight, but then you had, and it looks like the finals was actually somewhat varied. I mean, if you're looking at it, it was not necessarily one team that was dominating the finals. If I'm looking at this, I mean, obviously you had Dayton Fix, from Oklahoma State doing what he does, winning his weight class, ranked number 2 in the nation. But other than him, OSU did look like they did have another champion. I'm looking to see. So they had a Bedlam battle. So they ended up having 3 champions. Missouri, I believe, reading from it, they did have 2. But the other schools, you got Wyoming, Northern Iowa, Air Force, Iowa State, Northern Colorado, West Virginia. So a variety of schools actually taking individual titles. So, I think variety sometimes can make things interesting, but it also, can make it so that, maybe team scores aren't as big as they might seem, don't you think?
Yeah, that's certainly true because it meant that you couldn't tell just from the finals who exactly was winning.
Right. So yeah, so we'll have to see, how they do because, for the past several years, the national championships have been dominated by the Big Ten. In fact, I think it was Oklahoma State's 4-year run was the last time that any school outside of the Big Ten actually won the national title.
Right, because since then it was Minnesota under Jay Robinson, Brands, I think.
Ohio State did win one.
Yeah, Ohio State, and then Penn State.
Penn State.
And then Iowa again recently.
Right. Which,
yeah, it's been.
Let's segue into the surprising result that we saw, which was Michigan claiming the Big Ten title.
That's just crazy to me. The two teams that are like ranked up there were supposed
to
be
the fact
two.
that they were able to, I think for me, obviously it's going to be the Big Ten that everyone's going to want to talk about, but the fact that they were able to unseat not just Penn State, not just Iowa, individually, but both of them. So I think, but I think in the end, it looks like Penn State had a couple of matches that just did not go their way because, they still finished 1.5 points off the mark. So I think Penn State is obviously not done, considering, there's been, we've actually seen it, during some of their championship seasons that they didn't necessarily win the Big Ten. They would finish second. It might have been Iowa. I don't know if it was to, other teams, but they ended up, even if they didn't win the Big Ten, they would still go on to win the national title.
Well, that's the thing about the NCAAs. It doesn't necessarily depend on who wins the conference. It depends on who does better at the national stage. Like, I'll just throw an example from another sport. In football, in the SEC championship game, Alabama was going in there already with a loss, and Georgia went in there undefeated. Georgia lost. Guess who came back and won in the rematch in the college football final? It was Georgia. So it doesn't depend. It does not depend on who wins the conference. It depends on who wins the championship.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, there's been multiple times where, Penn State has not won the Big Ten, but has been able to come back and win it. The Big Ten ultimately doesn't mean anything.
So here's a name that you'll be familiar with. Gable Stevenson getting the Big Ten Wrestler of the Year. Obviously, one of, if not the best heavyweight in the country right now. If you look at it from the college aspect, but he is also one of the best heavyweights when it comes to the international scene, because he has a gold medal that he won last year at the Tokyo Olympics. So, I think, Gable is probably going to do what he does, at the NCAA tournament, and he'll probably end up repeating as national champion this year. I mean, do you think that there could be someone that could stop him?
At the college stage, I would have to say no. I would be very surprised if he does not win again.
So anyway, I think just, coming from where they were at, and I looked, and they ended up, when I was looking at the brackets, they ended up, you had Suriano. I think we know Suriano pretty well. He's coming back this year, and he obviously won his match. And then the interesting one though was Roman Bravo Young versus DeSanto. I've it's interesting how I think some people have tried to style DeSanto as the bad boy of college wrestling and stuff, and he gets a little bit on the the showboating side sometimes, or kind of gets a little bit too excited, and sometimes he might get to his opponents, but it seems to me that Roman Bravo Young kind of knew how to keep him down, because I could see just in the clip of the closing seconds, I think DeSanto, it looked like he knew he was beat, and he did try a last minute maneuver to try and escape, because he was down 3-1 obviously, but in the end Bravo Young came out on top. Do you think though that we'll be seeing these two in the finals?
I would probably say so. They're going to come in. They'll probably be seated on the other side of the bracket.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say there's a good chance that we'll see them rematch.
So Lee, we know from last year, winning the title at 141 pounds. Then you have Gomez, the number 2 seed, winning against Sasso, the number 1 seed from Ohio State, 8-5. So he is the Big Ten champion there. And then you've got Deacon from, I believe this is Nebraska, the number 1 seed. But I think this is where things really came into play. Lewin, who actually was going against the number 10 seed, Burge from Penn State.
Who upset Young of Iowa, number 2 seed.
Yes. So I think this is something that really, really catapulted Penn State up there, because I think this right here, shows that Penn State may have a chance at the title. You've got this is their best person, but he was the 10th seed at this weight class, and right here, this is an automatic top 6 finish. And as Big Ten, I mean, looking at the allocations, finishing 7th is going to automatically get you, into the tournament. And in some cases, it's more than that. You just have to finish top 10 in some cases. So I think that's a pretty
Essentially,
big,
you just have to win a match.
yeah, sometimes it's just you have to win a match. And just look, 10 seed Burge, and he ends up finishing 3rd. So could we see something happening at NCAAs with this kid? Who knows? But
yeah, look at he beat the Iowa guy twice.
So there's quite a bit that can happen here. Marinelli from Iowa, so there's our Iowa champion right there over Amin, number 4 seed from Michigan, who upset Karkla, who was the number 1 seed from OSU. Sorochi, Penn State, winning over Massa, who was the number 2 seed. So you had a 1 and 2 right there, just like in the 33-pound weight class. So here's one, and I think this looks like this was probably one of the matches that won the tournament for, Michigan, was another Amin brother from Michigan winning over Brooks, who was the number 1 seed from Penn State. And I think sometimes, and I'm sure you know that very well, Matthew. Sometimes these crucial matches are what's gonna make and break when it comes to winning certain tournaments, don't you?
Yeah, and that previous match was a sudden victory.
Right. But here, Penn State again coming up over Nebraska. So I do have to correct myself. I believe NU, if that's not Nebraska, Okay, so that's actually Northwestern, I think. So, and then heavyweight, obviously, Stevenson from Minnesota, the number 1 seed. And, you know, and I'm guessing, I'm just guessing that the heavyweight from Iowa probably forfeited this match because he probably felt it wasn't worth it. I mean, do you think that may have what happened?
Yeah, it was probably a situation where he was just like, you know what, I've got a tournament coming up in 2 weeks. I already got up there, so I'm just gonna. It's not worth trying, work trying to wrestle past an injury and injure myself when I've got the tournament coming up. It would be one thing if he was meeting in the Gable Stevenson in the finals and he
obviously
to try to win for the championship, but you gotta get there first.
So then let's look. I'm just gonna we'll go into the brackets really quick. I'm just gonna we're gonna go over the I think top 4 seeds. Would you say top 4 seeds to look at?
Yeah, let's look at that
for the tournament. Soriano, tough guy coming out of Michigan. He's the winner of Big Ten tournament. He's the number 1 seed. For number 2 from Cornell, you've got Vito Arujao. I apologize if I got his name wrong. And then so here's where it gets interesting, Matthew. Number 3 seed is from Princeton, Mr. Pat Glory. And then number 4 from ASU is Brandon Courtney. So, it looks like some pretty respectable records there. Soriano coming into this tournament undefeated. My guess is he probably did mostly duels and maybe a tournament here and there. I mean, they're probably taking into consideration his past records and such. So the fact that, coming into this tournament 11-0 as the number 1 seed for an overall season means that the coaches, when they were seeding him, really put a lot into consideration. Would you say that?
Yeah, I would have to go to like who he wrestled, and what situations he wrestled.
Right. Because I think one of the things that they were considering is quality of match, head-to-heads, obviously, and then quality of matches. I think it'll be interesting, unless something really drastic happens, probably going to see Soriano in the finals, and then it's a matter of who his opponent's going to be. Will it be the 2 or 3 seeds, or will it be someone else? Who knows? So at 33, I mean, this is not surprising. Roman Bravo Young from Penn State. I believe he is, if I go to the D1 brackets from last year, Roman Bravo Young was the champion, and he actually won in sudden victory over Dayton Fix. So, this time it's going to be, both wrestlers coming back, and it looks like so the roles are reversed based on, probably not just this year's results, but probably also the taking the last tournament into consideration. But it's basically the 1 and 2. Do you think that with the way that they're going, both men are undefeated, which means that they have not wrestled each other at all? Do you think it's likely that we're probably going to see a rematch of last year's finals?
I would say so. I'd say they're probably going to go in there and wrestle through and probably in the finals again, and we'll see a rematch.
Right. And then, here the top 2 seeds are dominated by the Big Ten, Nick Lee of Penn State and Jaden Ironman from Iowa. At number 3 and number 4, you've got Sebastian Rivera from Rutgers. So that's another Big Ten team. And then you've got Real Woods from Stanford. So you've got 3 Big Tens and then one Pac-12 as your top 4 seeds at 141. So if we go into the brackets from last year, once again, it is going to be, it was Lee and Ironman, and Lee was the one who had a sudden victory. So this time, like at 33 pounds, the seeds are reversed. Lee's coming in as the number 1 seed, the defending champion. And then Ironman, he's coming in as the number 2 seed. I mean, probably, we are seeing some patterns here, Matthew. I mean, and I think this one loss is obviously to Ironman, or to Lee, I'm sorry. So another rematch, do you think?
Yeah, again, if there's no
Injuries.
unexpected upsets, then we'll probably see a rematch in the finals.
So 149. And again, apologies to all our viewers out there. I'm trying to get into the things here, but Yanni Dakamalis, I'm going to just say it like that. The undefeated number 1 seed from Cornell. Again, Matthew, we know about Cornell very well. So he's coming in. But then you've got Tariq Wilson from NC State. So, but then you come in but even at 149, so Austin Gomez from Wisconsin, and then Sammy Sasso from Ohio State. So you do have 2 Big Ten teams representing the 3 and 4 seed of this weight class, but you've got EIWA, and then you've got the ACC. So I think what for the other schools, in order to be in contention here, is going to be dependent on how their teams, if it's Michigan, if it's Iowa, or if it's Penn State, just how their guys are going to do. Although I do believe that Michigan Store, I believe, he finished 8th at the Big Tens, so he did not qualify for the tournament at this weight class. But there is Penn State does have a wrestler. Iowa does have a wrestler. Iowa qualified 10. Penn State qualified 9. But do you think maybe this weight class right here, you think it might hurt Michigan if they have national title aspirations?
I would have to say yes, but again, I don't necessarily think that Michigan is going to win the national title. I think they pulled an upset at the Big Tens, and I really don't think they're going to be able to pull it off at nationals.
So getting into 157, we're looking and seeing that Iowa State, David Carr, undefeated, number 1 seed. Then you got Ryan Deacon, number 2 seed, undefeated from Northwestern. And then you've got Corey Teamer from ASU, undefeated as the number 3 seed. And then Ed Scott from NC State as the number 4 seed. But from what I'm seeing here, Matthew, it looks like Big Ten is represented in the top 4 seeds, but it's neither Iowa nor Penn State. So we could be seeing this as a not so, it'd be interesting to see, how the teams do. But obviously, to win the national title, especially if you're not seeded that well, you're going to have to pull some upsets, don't you think?
Yeah, that's one of the methods in which you are able to win national titles, is in the weight classes where you're kind of seated a little bit lower. You have to go in there and you have to wrestle your best, see if you can't pull any upsets, exploit the opportunities that you have, and at minimum get on the podium.
So Evan Wick from Cal Poly is the number 1 seed. So, hey, we've got California representing. Be interesting to see if we can have a national title from a California school. So he is the number 1 seed. Then you got Keegan O'Toole from Missouri, so Big 12. Number 3, Alex Marinelli from Iowa, and then number 4 is Dean Hamidi from Wisconsin. So, hoping at least from our perspective, hoping the best to see if, it'd be nice to see a Pac-12 school win, a national championship, even if it's just individually, but 2, to see a California team end up winning, especially when it's not a, not known to be a big, it is known for wrestling, but just not on that high level, don't you think?
Yeah, Cal Poly. Yeah, it had John Azevedo, who was also known for building the Calvary Chapel dynasty, but he didn't seem to be able to excel as much at the NCAA level, at D1 level, as he was at the high school level. But that's, of course, because at the high school level, it's a little bit easier to excel, whereas you're at the top. So it would be nice. I can't remember if Cal Poly has had a national champion before. I'd like to say yes.
I remember Dad mentioned that they've had 2.
Yeah, so it would be nice to see them get one, because they haven't had one in a while.
So 174, Carter Starochi from Penn State, number 1 seed. Mekai Lewis from Virginia Tech, number 2 seed. So that's ACC. Logan Massa from Michigan, number 3 seed. And then Hayden Hidley from NC State. So NC State, kind of getting in those top 4 seeds from, here and there. So, they might be gunning for a top 10 finish. But, I think if things were to go so we could see Penn State in the finals versus Virginia Tech from the ACC. 174, Miles Amin from Michigan. He is he is seeded number 1, and then you've got Aaron Brooks from Penn State, seeded number 2. Trent Hidley from NC State, and then Parker Kekison from University of Northern Iowa. So, we're here. We're seeing how things are going. Could be interesting to see if we have if Amin and Brooks were to make the finals, a rematch of the Big Ten championships. Another way that Michigan could try to contend. Max Dean, number 1 seed at 197, representing Penn State. And then you got Stephen Buchanan from Wyoming, as the number 2 seed. And then Eric Schultz from Nebraska and Patrick Brookie from Michigan. So here we do have a weight class that does have 3 Big Ten wrestlers in the top 4 seeds. Doesn't necessarily mean that, that's guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed here. So then if we go to the heavyweight, no surprise, Gable Stevenson is the number 1 seed. But then Colton Schultz from Arizona State is the number 2 seed. And then it goes from there. You'll have Tony Cassiope from Iowa, and then Greg Kirkvliet from Penn State, being in the top 4. So Matthew, overall, we saw that if you were to look at, I did kind of go through here. Penn State is going to have, if I can, let me see here. So this is all the school, I gotta, Track Wrestling kicked me out. But just kind of going through the teams. This is the counts of all the teams. So if you're looking so far, Cornell has gotten 9 wrestlers into the tournament. You got Iowa State also got 9. Iowa got, a full 10. And, so those are probably going to be some of the top contenders. Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri all get 9. NC State got 10. Northwestern got 10. And then you look at Ohio State. Oklahoma State got 8, which is, respectable, not necessarily dominant. Oklahoma, Oregon State, Penn State all get 9. Pennsylvania University gets 10. And then if you look at the closing from there, you get Wisconsin gets 9, and also Virginia Tech and Virginia get 8. But overall, Matthew, obviously nothing is guaranteed. But, if you were to look at seeing how things have been going, obviously Penn State was the team that ended up winning the duel between them and Iowa. And then it looked like they dominated some other ranked teams, quite convincingly. But just then having this thing, out of nowhere, Michigan coming in and winning the Big Ten, though. Do you think, though, that this is going to really put any – do you think this is going to deter Penn State from trying to go out and get back on the championship road? Or do you think it might be Iowa? They might have, they have their own scores to settle with Penn State also and actually try to, repeat. Tom Brands, he just got extended. I'm looking, I see this article from, Flow. Brands has been extended through 2029. I mean, Iowa is very, very happy to keep Brands, where he is, because they know that he's probably going to bring them a couple more, national titles for the team. Obviously, there will be winners coming out of the individual championships. All in all, though, who do you think? Penn State, Michigan, Iowa, or could it be someone outside of the Big Ten?
The safe bet is definitely, I'd say, Penn State. I really do think what happened at the Big Ten was a fluke. If anyone were to pull the upset, I would say it would have to be Iowa. I'd say Brands would be able to pull it off. And the reason why they extended it is because he's a very consistent coach. I mean, he's always kept them in contention. And as we've seen, he's brought multiple NCAA titles. Granted, they've come in waves, but he has been able to keep them consistent. And he's been able to actually get them the titles. So it's one of those things where if anyone would pull the upset, I have to say it would be Iowa. Like I said, it's a little bit easier in a pool of 14 to be able to pull an upset than to be able to pull an upset in a pool of 30, or was it 33?
33.
Yeah, 33. It's a lot easier for that to happen. So I really, if there was an upset, I'd say it was Brands. And the thing, one of the things to remember about Brands is he is a protege of Gable. So was Zaleski, but Zaleski wasn't able to pull anything after the first 3 years where he was essentially riding off of Gable's coattails. He was not the coach that Iowa or even Gable thought it'd be, because Zaleski was Gable's handpicked successor. He said, "You are going to be the one who's going to continue my legacy," and they just kept going down. It's just like, okay, you're not the guy I thought you were. I was not you. Yes, which resulted in Brands, who again was a protege of Gable, but this time he was able to bring them from their lowest point post Gable to actually winning championships.
There you have it.
He has proven that. The thing with Gable is that you have to look at Gable and you have to look at Kale. They were both very unique wrestlers, and thus they became unique coaches because they were able to pass that on to their
wrestlers, right?
So but they were very unique individuals, whereas the Brands brothers, I'm not going to so much talk about Terry because he's kind of an interesting case in and of himself. But Tom Brands was the one who, was able to go out there and was able to wrestle and was able to again turn that around. But he had to work a little bit harder for it.
Yes.
Gable again was this unique, gifted wrestler who was able to turn that into being a unique, gifted coach. Kale was the same. It is the same way. Who is a unique, gifted wrestler and has turned that into being a unique, gifted coach. Brands had to work for it. He was not a naturally gifted wrestler like Gable. He was the type of guy who, while athletic, had to work for it harder, and then but as a result, he's kind of had to again work for it harder when it came to passing that on. He taught more of a work ethic than he did. He's been able to teach more of a work ethic than necessarily the being able to pass that on as a coach, being able to coach the guys. And that's why he hasn't had exactly the same results as Gable. Gable was consistent. Gable was winning championships during his time when he racked the 15. He was able to win championships. I don't think more than 2 years apart. I might be wrong, but I don't think he had more than 2 years apart where he was racking up championships. So, whereas you look at Brands Gap was about almost a decade apart.
Yes.
And he didn't win multiple championships. So, and maybe if Kale wasn't in the picture, maybe Brands would be winning more.
Probably.
But again,
definitely
it's that matter of Kale is very similar to Gable, and that they're both unique, gifted wrestlers who were able to turn out to be unique, gifted coaches. Whereas Brands is more of a workhorse.
Well, and you also have to consider, Kale, he didn't start off at Penn State because he was actually, I believe he was back at his alma mater.
Yeah, he was at his alma mater at Iowa State. He took over for Bobby Douglas.
And they did have a third place finish, but it sounds, obviously from what it looks like, he found the exact formula he needed when he went to Penn State.
It's very interesting because, when we're talking about two unique, gifted wrestlers, we're also talking about two unique, gifted Iowa State alumni. They both came from Iowa State, but they couldn't excel. They were only able to excel when they went away. Gable built Iowa, just like Kale has built Penn State. I believe both of those schools had won national championships before, but not in the consistent manner. They were not like Oklahoma State, who has built this dynasty where at least the coaches, I think each coach has won at least one national championship at Oklahoma State, which is why they have 34 national titles. That wasn't the history at Penn State or Iowa. Iowa had, I think, less than 5. Penn State had 1. And they've been able to turn those around.
And I'm trying to look back at the history of stuff because I'm trying to look at, because there's likely a possibility Oklahoma State wasn't even in the Big 12 during some of their championship years. As you know, the Big 12 used to be the Big 8 before it merged with merging with another conference.
The Southwestern Conference.
Right. It merged with the Southwestern Conference, and technically the Big 8 and the Big 12 are not actually the same conferences.
No, they're the result of a merger.
Right. They're the result of a merger, so the Big 12 is more it's a successor to the Big 8. But so
yeah, I'm not sure either of the. I know that the Southwestern Conference, their stuff is archived.
Yeah, trying to find that too. Anyway, but you bring up some good points. I mean, again, it's really interesting how you can have some talented individuals, and if they put their focus in the right place, they're going to make some very successful programs and wrestlers. So again, we'll have to see. I mean, you might be right. Iowa could pull something off. They have the advantage right now where 10 of their wrestlers qualified over Penn State's 9. So Penn State does have that. If it was any other school, where they might have 10 versus Penn State's 9, that's one thing. But this is going to be quite a hill to climb when you're already down. Like in a duel, if you're down 6 points, that's a very steep hill to climb from there. So it's the same thing here. Team points that could have been. Will Penn State pull it off? I mean, they've got good wrestlers to carry them into the finals, but then it's a matter of those wrestlers who don't make, the finals, because they will have wrestlers not making the finals. I mean, you're net, if you were to go 100%, that you've had a phenomenal year, obviously. But, when they're not, how are those wrestlers going to do, in the consolations? Because that's, a lot of times that's what ends up happening. It's in the consolations where, the tournaments end up being decided because of how you built up those points. So we'll see. So Matthew, it looks like you've got Penn State 1, Iowa 2. Want to take a guess on 3? Cornell, Michigan, maybe?
I'll say Cornell.
Cornell 3rd. Well, we'll see. Action begins this Thursday, so make sure that you're getting out there and watching it. And so that's it from us. Again, thanks as always for supporting us. And you can catch Matthew on MMAfreak.com. That's MMA-freak.com. He's also on Twitter, IG, and also Matthew, anywhere else that we can find you?
I do have my own.
And then there's his YouTube. So if you want to also go there too. But anyway, so Matthew, where else can you find Samurai Brothers Wrestling on?
Well, let's see. We are on YouTube, and Rumble is our video. We are on Acast, Apple, and we are now on Spotify. More platforms to come.
Yes, more platforms to come. We want to make sure that everyone across the board is able to hear our commentaries. And we're obviously just two guys, two brothers. Just we haven't been the best wrestlers, and we've had our ups and downs, but we just want to kind of just talk about wrestling now. It's always fun to just see how things are going on in the sport. So anyway, thanks for watching us, and hope you have a great rest of your week, and look forward to the NCAA Division I tournament. And we will be back next week to basically talk about how that tournament went. And maybe we'll be able to cover just who we might see coming back for the next year. Anyway, so take care out there, and we will see you again.